Chapter 8. Transcending the Modes of Material Nature. When you see that there is nothing beyond these modes of nature in all activities and that the Supreme Lord is transcendental to all these modes, then you can know my spiritual nature. Bhagavad Gita 14.19. The hidden operating system running your life. Imagine discovering that your computer has been running background programs this entire time, programs that influence every decision you make, every emotion you feel, and every action you take, without you even realizing it. You thought you were making free choices, but actually these hidden programs were shaping your preferences, reactions, and even your sense of what makes you happy. This is essentially what the Bhagavad Gita reveals about human psychology. While Max Lucado helps us identify and replace negative thought patterns with God's truth, the ancient text goes deeper. It explains the underlying, operating system that generates those thought patterns in the first place. According to the Bhagavad Gita, there are three fundamental modes, or qualities of material nature that influence every aspect of human behavior and experience. Understanding these modes, and learning how to transcend them, might be the most practical psychological insight you'll ever encounter. The three hidden influences shaping your life. Think of these three modes like different colored lenses through which you view and interact with life. Depending on which lens is dominant at any given moment, your entire experience of reality shifts. Mode of goodness, sattva, the rose-colored glasses. What it feels like. When you're influenced by goodness, life feels manageable, meaningful, and generally positive. You're drawn to learning, helping others, and activities that seem virtuous and constructive. You feel relatively peaceful, your thinking is clearer, and you're generally optimistic about life's possibilities. The upside. This mode promotes wisdom, happiness, and ethical behavior. People in goodness tend to be teachers, healers, philosophers, or others dedicated to constructive pursuits. They're generally trustworthy, stable, and contribute positively to society. The hidden trap. Here's what's surprising: even goodness can become a binding force. You can become attached to being the good person, addicted to knowledge for its own sake, or dependent on the happiness that comes from virtuous activities. You might judge others who aren't as evolved, or become proud of your spiritual progress. Real-life example. Think of someone who's deeply involved in environmental causes, meditation practices, and healthy living, but who becomes judgmental toward people who don't share their values. Their goodness has become a subtle form of ego. Mode of passion, rajas, the adrenaline addiction. What it feels like. When passion dominates, you're driven by intense desires and ambitions. Everything feels urgent and important. You're constantly planning, working, achieving, acquiring. There's a restless energy that never quite lets you rest, always pushing toward the next goal, the next experience, the next achievement. The upside. This mode drives progress, innovation, and accomplishment. People in passion build businesses, create art, pursue relationships, and generate the energy that moves civilization forward. The downside. Passion is inherently frustrating because desires multiply faster than they can be fulfilled. Each achievement brings temporary satisfaction followed by new cravings. You become emotionally dependent on outcomes you can't fully control, leading to anxiety, disappointment, and a sense that you're never quite there yet. Real-life example. The entrepreneur who works 80-hour weeks, achieves remarkable success, but can never enjoy it because they're always focused on the next deal, the next level, the next acquisition. They mistake activity for progress and confuse temporary excitement for genuine happiness. Mode of ignorance, tamas, the fog machine. What it feels like. When ignorance dominates, everything feels heavy, unclear, and difficult. You might experience depression, confusion, excessive sleep, or a general sense that life is meaningless. Decision-making becomes difficult, motivation disappears, and you might engage in behaviors you know are harmful but feel powerless to change. The trap. This mode creates a vicious cycle. The more you're influenced by ignorance, the less capable you become of making choices that would lift you out of it. You might know what you should do but lack the clarity or energy to do it. Real-life example. Someone who spends hours scrolling social media, eating junk food, and avoiding responsibilities, all while feeling increasingly depressed and disconnected from any sense of purpose. They're not lazy or bad, they're caught in a psychological fog that makes constructive action feel impossible. The constant competition inside your head. Here's what makes this system so complex. All three modes are constantly competing for dominance in your consciousness. It's like having three different radio stations broadcasting simultaneously, with the volume constantly changing. You might start your day in goodness, feeling peaceful, grateful, ready to contribute, shift into passion during a challenging work project, becoming driven, perhaps stressed, focused on results. And end the day in ignorance, exhausted, mindlessly consuming entertainment, avoiding anything that requires effort. The daily dance. Morning meditation, goodness. Intense work session, passion. Frustration when things don't go as planned, passion turning negative. Giving up and binge watching Netflix, ignorance. Guilt about wasting time, goodness returning. New resolution to do better tomorrow, passion about self-improvement. Sound familiar? How this explains common mental struggles. Understanding these modes provides a completely different framework for addressing the mental challenges that Max Lucado writes about. Anxiety and overwhelm. Traditional approach. Try to stop worrying, think positively, trust God. Modes perspective. Anxiety often comes from being stuck in passion mode, constantly driven by desires for specific outcomes while feeling unable to control results. The solution isn't just changing thoughts but shifting to a different mode of consciousness entirely. Practical application. Instead of trying to eliminate passionate desires, redirect that same energy towards serving something greater than your personal agenda. The drive remains, but it's no longer attached to outcomes you can't control. Depression and meaninglessness. Traditional approach. Count your blessings, remember God's love, seek professional help. Modes perspective. Depression often indicates dominance of ignorance mode, consciousness has become heavy, unclear, and disconnected from purpose. The solution involves consciously cultivating activities that increase goodness, knowledge, service, spiritual practice, rather than just trying to feel better. Practical application. Even when motivation is low, engage in small activities that increase clarity and connection, reading wisdom literature, spending time in nature, helping someone else. Or practices like chanting that don't require emotional energy but gradually shift consciousness. Guilt and shame. Traditional approach. Accept forgiveness, let go of the past, focus on God's grace. Modes perspective. Guilt often comes from actions performed in passion or ignorance mode. You acted from a lower consciousness and now your higher intelligence recognizes the harm. The solution isn't just forgiveness but developing the strength to act from goodness more consistently. The revolutionary solution, transcending all three modes. Here's where the Bhagavad Gita becomes truly radical. While most psychological and spiritual systems try to help you function better within these modes, usually by increasing goodness, the ancient text suggests something more ambitious, transcending all three modes entirely. This transcendence is called Krishna consciousness, a state of awareness that operates from a completely different level than the material modes. What transcendence actually means? Think of it like this: instead of being an actor who gets completely absorbed in playing different roles, sometimes hero, sometimes villain, sometimes victim, you remember that you're an actor. You can still play the roles when appropriate, but you're no longer limited or defined by them. Practical signs of transcendence. You can experience success or failure without your inner peace depending on either. You feel genuine love for others regardless of whether they benefit or approve of you. Your happiness comes from serving something greater rather than getting something for yourself. You remain calm and clear-minded even in challenging situations. You act from wisdom rather than just reaction, even under pressure. The path. 9 practical methods. The Bhagavad Gita outlines 9 specific practices for developing transcendent consciousness. These aren't just religious rituals, they're psychological technologies for shifting your operating system. 1. Hearing, Sravanarn. Regularly listening to wisdom that comes from those who've actually transcended the modes, rather than just theoretical knowledge or entertainment that reinforces material consciousness. 2. Chanting, kirtanam. Using sacred sound to directly shift consciousness. This could be traditional mantras like, Hare Krishna, or any sincere calling upon the divine that connects you to something beyond material modes. 3. Remembering, smaranam. Consciously remembering your spiritual identity and connection to the divine throughout daily activities, rather than getting completely absorbed in temporary roles and circumstances. 4. Serving, pada savanam. Engaging your body in activities that serve others' spiritual development rather than just personal gratification or even material charity. 5. Worshipping, arcanam. Creating regular practices that honor the divine presence. This could be traditional worship, but also includes treating your daily activities as sacred service. 6. Praying, vandanam. Developing genuine humility and dependence on divine wisdom rather than trying to control outcomes through personal effort alone. 7. Following divine direction, dejam. Making decisions based on spiritual principles and guidance from realized souls rather than just personal desires or social expectations. 8. Friendship with the divine, sakyam. Developing a personal, loving relationship with Krishna rather than just seeing spirituality as duty or discipline. 9. Complete surrender, atma nivedanam. Offering all your thoughts, activities, and their results to Krishna rather than trying to be the ultimate controller of your life. Making it practical, daily mode management. You don't have to master all 9 practices immediately. Start by becoming aware of which mode is influencing you at different times. Morning assessment. What mode am I starting this day in? Goodness. Peaceful, clear, ready to contribute. Passion. Driven, anxious about outcomes, focused on personal agenda. Ignorance. Heavy, unclear, avoiding responsibility. Throughout the day, notice when you shift between modes and what triggers these shifts. Evening reflection. Which mode dominated today, and how did it affect my experience and relationships? Conscious cultivation. Choose specific activities that increase goodness and transcendence. Study wisdom literature instead of just consuming entertainment. Serve others without expecting recognition. Practice chanting or prayer during routine activities. Associate with people who support your spiritual growth. Eat food that's been offered to the divine with gratitude. The ultimate promise, freedom from psychological slavery. Both Max Lucado's Christian approach and the Bhagavad Gita's ancient wisdom point toward the same ultimate promise. You don't have to remain a victim of your own mental and emotional reactions. But where Lucado focuses on managing thoughts within your current level of consciousness. The Bhagavad Gita suggests that you can actually shift to an entirely different level of consciousness where negative thought patterns naturally fall away. It's like the difference between learning better techniques for rowing a boat versus discovering you can actually fly. Both are valuable, but one offers possibilities you never imagined. When you consistently engage in Krishna consciousness, several remarkable changes occur. Dualities lose their power over you, success and failure, praise and criticism, comfort and discomfort become much less emotionally overwhelming. Relationships become more genuine. You can love others for their own sake rather than needing them to fulfill your emotional needs. Work becomes worship. Activities that once felt mundane become opportunities for spiritual growth. Inner peace becomes your default state. Instead of something you have to achieve, peace becomes what you naturally return to. Fear gradually disappears. When you know your essential identity is eternal and connected to infinite love, what is there to ultimately fear? This isn't about becoming perfect or never experiencing challenges. It's about discovering a level of consciousness that remains stable and loving regardless of external circumstances. The modes of material nature will continue to operate in the world around you, but you'll no longer be their unconscious victim. Instead, you'll become a conscious participant in the divine play, able to serve the highest good while remaining inwardly free. The question isn't whether this transcendence is possible. Countless practitioners throughout history have demonstrated that it is. The question is whether you're ready to begin working with your consciousness at this deeper level. Your thoughts are symptoms. The modes are the underlying program. Krishna consciousness is the upgrade to a completely different operating system, one designed for love, wisdom, and genuine freedom rather than just survival and gratification. Are you ready for the upgrade?